How's it going, everyone? David from dodmedia. Today we're having a look at this just announced E-mount version of this already very popular lens by Sigma. It's the 100 to 400mm f5-6.3. I was sent this pre-production unit to play with for a couple of days with the caveat that the autofocus and the image stabilization may not be up to scratch because they weren't finalized, so they might not perform as well as the final product would. However, the image quality was final, the lens optics were set, and this is what this lens can give you. Now, as I said, I only had it for a short amount of time, but enough time to try it out in a number of different situations. So I once again teamed up with my buddy Maciek, observing social distancing, obviously. Now, Maciek is a keen cyclist, so when I told him to get on his bike and join me in the forest, well, he didn't disappoint. We tried this lens out under various conditions, both in photo and video mode, to see what it was capable of producing in terms of an image quality. I even tried it on a gimbal, following Josh Yeo's attempt to stabilize some 400mm footage. But unfortunately, my Feiyutech AK4000 was not up to scratch. It kept vibrating, and at 400mm, those vibrations are like nauseatingly obvious. So I guess the gimbal just couldn't handle that weight and size, which is weird because it took my A7III, which is rigged up with the 85mm by Sigma, which is a heavy lens, and it worked just fine. So I don't know what the problem was there, but even making sure that it was balanced, it just wouldn't work. So I shot handheld instead. The onboard stabilization worked incredibly well in photo and video mode, even on this pre-production model. The stabilization promises an additional 4 stops, which means that you can keep your shutter speeds fairly low and you don't have to crank up your ISO to get that light. And in video mode, it really made one hell of a difference having that on. Right now it's moving around, and as soon as I half press that trigger, boom. The autofocus also performed incredibly well, whether it was shooting through a lot of foreground elements or just tracking a fast moving subject. It was lightning quick when I was shooting stills, and in video mode, it offered a very, very smooth focus pulling. It didn't have any kind of hunting, any searching. It was just really nice and fluid, which essentially means that it works really well with Sony's autofocus system because the lens is only as good as the autofocus driving it. So overall, I feel like the weight of the lens combined with the 4 stops you get in image stabilization, the blazing fast autofocus, which is super accurate even when tracking, that makes this lens a pretty awesome lens if you're a wildlife shooter or a sports shooter. The only drawback is the relatively low speeds of the lens, maxing out at f5 at 100mm and f6.3 at 400mm. So unless you're shooting in the daytime, you might need to start cranking up that ISO if the image stabilization isn't giving you the sharpness that you need in your shots. But then again, this lens is priced at about £800 or just under, so that's a very acceptable maximum aperture for that given focal range. And the bokeh certainly doesn't disappoint, giving you beautifully blurred out backgrounds and foregrounds. So if you're interested in getting your hands on this lens, there'll be a link in the description. It's an affiliate link, which means that it won't cost you anything extra. I'll just get a small cut from the sale to help support this channel. I hope you enjoyed this review. Give it a thumbs up if you liked what you saw, and hit that subscribe button to get more videos like this, gear reviews and tutorials from me at dodmedia. Cheers.